It's Thursday, June 27th, and today I talk with Tommy Ryan about making the move from Salesforce to Microsoft. It's a generally broad topic, so we dive into the different products, and you'll be amazed with how much overlap there is between Salesforce and Microsoft. So if you're interested in learning more about either making the move or the individual products themselves, give this a listen. Hi, and welcome to the Work Together Better podcast. This is your host, Danny Ryan. This is Three Wheels' official podcast about enterprise collaboration, how people, process, and technology combine to help organizations, departments, and teams work together better. How's it going, Tommy?
It's going well. It's
a
good sock day. Did you check out my socks?
You hesitated for a second there. You checked your socks to make sure it was a good day.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay, tell me I need some background.
What do you think?
Things. We're gonna have to have some pictures of this. All right.
So,
give me the background on the socks.
Well, we had a wedding in Colorado a couple months back, and this is from the New Belgium brewery. We took a brewery tour. It was actually my first time doing a brewery.
So you went to a brewery and bought socks?
Yeah, it sounded like I've been to the brewery. But yeah, we got glasses too. Nice. But the socks were kind of cool looking socks.
So you probably wrapped the glasses with your socks when you put them on the air.
Yeah, how'd you know?
Oh, I'm smart like that. I know how to package
That's an old trick.
Huh? All right, talking about packaging today, we're going to talk about a really important subject. So background on this is we've been talking through a bunch of different platforms and moving to Office 365 and Microsoft in general. And today we are going to cover one of the big ones. And that is Salesforce, and we're going to talk about Salesforce.
That little thing called
Salesforce. And you know what? When we talked about different platforms, we talked about some of them that were more along the lines of enterprise social with things like Workplace by Facebook and Slack. And then we talked about some of what Gartner used to call the enterprise file sync and share. They now call it the content collaboration, things like Box and Dropbox.
Right.
And then we covered some of the Google stuff, which is more around office productivity types of things, and started to get into a lot of overlap with Microsoft. What I find with this one is, man, oh man, when I talk about moving from Salesforce to Microsoft, I sort of initially just thought, let's focus in on Chatter to Yammer or Teams. But then I think let's start this whole conversation off with sort of like all of the different services that you could move from, and maybe we can jump into a little bit more detail in other upcoming podcasts, breaking out some of these individually and sort of the benefits and challenges of doing that. But today, let's focus in on overall moving from Salesforce over to Microsoft. Sound like a good challenge for the day?
We can do that.
Awesome. So I think as I look at getting this started off, and Tommy and I are looking at a board, and probably Austin, if you want to take a picture of it, you can add it into the blog post if you want to. But I just sort of threw up one column Salesforce, the other column's Microsoft, and then the area. Because the more we started thinking about this, the more we started recognizing the vast amount of overlap between the products that Microsoft has and the products that Salesforce has.
Yeah, this one probably has the most so far. I think Google had quite a bit to kind of move over, had a broader platform, but Salesforce definitely has the most overlap.
Yep. So let's, I think probably if we start with the Chatter to Yammer / Teams, and that's in the enterprise social area. I think what we see there is, Chatter is a product from Microsoft around enterprise social, where you're able to really, what's nice about it is how it's so integrated into the CRM and how you can start conversations about an account or start conversations about an opportunity. The important thing with enterprise social is sort of context, like what are we talking about? And I think one of the benefits of Chatter is if you happen to be using Salesforce for your CRM, and we'll get to this later, if you are, the benefits of sort of having those conversations about those particular objects or things within Salesforce, how you can keep it close to it, and that's really beneficial.
That's a good point, because I think when you look at, let's say, Yammer as one alternative on the Microsoft side, is that Yammer is kind of that centralized stream of information. There's groups, the way to kind of channel some of that. But a lot of people are staying at the highest level where they see everything from their groups and things for the all company. And then when you're in the world of Chatter, it's more of kind of a add-on to the objects there. So if I'm inside an account, or if I'm on an opportunity, I can start a conversation and I don't have to give it context. I'm already in that context, and I go over to the Chatter kind of tab and start, pulling people into a conversation on that particular object. I think Chatter has, in some aspects, a closer relationship to Teams, because Teams has that ability to have discussions around pieces of content. And so it gets to the context in a natural way, where if you're just in Yammer, you got to do a lot of extra effort to kind of pull in the context. You have to kind of link over, and it's a little bit more disjointed. But I think both Chatter and Teams give you that close to the content, conversational context.
Yeah, and I think with this, for us, I think we use a little bit of, our approach is, we have some conversations in Chatter. If it's, if I want to ask somebody, hey, what's going on inside this account, or what's the latest with, sort of starting these little conversations about different things that are in Salesforce for us. Then I think, I put Yammer/Teams because I looked, what was it, yesterday or maybe earlier today, and looked in our Yammer feed, and it was probably 6 months ago was the last time somebody put something in there. I mean, Teams has replaced it. So I think the enterprise social, and we're a small company, so I understand for larger companies, for the outer loop stuff, Yammer just makes sense. But I think some of those types of conversations are really going over into Teams. And then you have whatever the appropriate structure inside of Teams for those social conversations. They're set up there. With Teams, we also have you have the smaller groups and also the entire company. So, trying to collaborate across the entire organization, where it's more of a talking about something. Teams seem to be enabling more of that nowadays. So, why would you move from Chatter over to, is there, and again, I think we've talked about this with Enterprise Social, which is the content around this is really, it's transient. It's stuff that's conversations from a while back, which is good metadata, but is it really stuff that you need to migrate over if you decided to move from Chatter to Yammer or Teams? It seems like there might not be a whole lot of value out of doing that.
The only thing, and it's kind of a stretch, is a Chatter around file content. So if you've got binary content in Salesforce, and for some reason you are, let's say you've got contracts that you're collaborating around in Chatter, where you kind of see the history of how did we land on this final piece of content, then moving that conversations over to Teams, if you're moving the file content into SharePoint, might be have some value, that it's not as transient. It's like, I want to go back, look at this file, and I want context to how this file landed. To take, things and push that into Yammer, I really don't see a lot of value in that. And there have to be special cases that, bring some value to say, I need to go search these conversations, and where do I want to, quote, stage or move these conversations to stay in the Office 365 platform. Maybe that could be Yammer if it's knowledge.
That leads us to the next piece, which is really around files inside of Salesforce. I don't know whether it's nowadays whether it's called Chatter files or Salesforce files, but essentially you're storing binary content or files that you want to store inside of Salesforce. We've a while back we created that integration between Salesforce and Office 365, where you could sort of you could store files about accounts, opportunities. And inside of Office 365, and you sort of had that full experience, which was a really nice, the files component within Salesforce doesn't have that sort of like, I want to go edit it and make it very easy for you to edit files. At least it's a little bit more of a multiple step process, let's put it that way.
Right.
And this might be, for content that is in like a binary format would be something that's of value to move to, and for on the Microsoft side, it'd be OneDrive or SharePoint Online, that it makes sense to really migrate that content over if you were, wanting to make the move. And I think we really do start to see a lot of benefits of storing files within the Microsoft platform, where you have that integrated Office experience. There's a lot more that you can do once those files have been moved over.
Yeah. And we do have context to this, where we built the integration that was an app in the App Exchange, and the ability to have cheaper file storage because they're storing it inside of SharePoint versus inside of Salesforce, and document management in general. It's SharePoint is more of a document repository or content management system than Salesforce. And I think one of the challenges we had is people didn't want to pay much for it, at the end of the day. And I think Salesforce was trying to create some of that integration. But I do see, that can be a migration source, taking Salesforce files and moving them into SharePoint.
Yep. So then the next sort of place that I would like to go to, so we hit Chatter, we hit Files, is the Salesforce Community Cloud, which is really maps. This is sort of like the intranet, extranet portals piece of the Salesforce platform. And that would typically move over to SharePoint Online, and it's sort of its components as well. That is something that's out there that typically, we're somebody wanting to migrate. I'm just trying to think of what sort of content. Why would they make the move? What are the benefits of doing this? Any thoughts on that, Tommy?
Well, I think we look at this as an extranet scenario. When you look at Community Cloud, I think some scenarios are teams that you would externalize. You're trying to get collaboration across organizations, and so we kind of point at SharePoint Online. Could maybe even say Teams as an example there.
Maybe the front end is Teams, and you've got components of it going to SharePoint.
We're doing that today. We've got some of our clients that we create a team we call it an external team, and we're finding more traction of people coming in to collaborate with us in a team than we did with, say, a SharePoint extranet.
Yeah.
Just because it's simplified. It has very distinct streams of what do you do in this versus SharePoint Online. It's documents, and discussions are not very rich and natural as they are inside of a conversation in Teams.
Awesome. Next area is this is from an acquisition from Salesforce, but they bought a company called Quip, and that's
Quip it good.
That would be in the what we classify as sort of the office productivity area, and the equivalent to that would be Office Online and with the Office client products as well. I think this. I don't know if we're
I'm
really
not sure how much of a longevity you would see in this something like Quip, where they're trying to compete with Office Online as a set of it's similar to Google Docs and Google Sheets, and that it seems like Office is and Google are the main players, and they're definitely going into a mature market to have a competitive product to Office Online. And I think some of it is probably coming from we want to own the ecosystem, and there is a lot of value in having an online experience to work with binary information, binary documents. So if they have to kind of be thrown over to Google Docs or thrown over to Office, they kind of lose that seamless experience. So you kind of get why they're doing it, but I think most people, they've made a decision. I'm either Office or I'm Google, and I don't think a lot of companies are looking to have something better than that. They've decided one or the other, and they're not necessarily looking for a third alternative.
One has just happened within the last couple of weeks that I don't have up here on the board, which is Salesforce bought Tableau, which would be something like Power BI would be the Microsoft equivalent.
Yeah.
So that they're trying to round out the marketplace.
I could see that. Tableau's, that seems like a good acquisition.
Yep. So so that's one I'll have to throw up on the board here as well. So that would be
wow.
The next overlap. One. Yeah, it's amazing. You can see who's taking on who, right?
Yeah.
Let's go on to the next one, which let's start getting off into some of the apps pieces, which if I looked at like cloud infrastructure and services, don't you love the way I spelled infrastructure up there? Heroku. So Salesforce has Heroku, Microsoft has Azure. This is you wanting to build out custom cloud-based apps. So you might look at moving some of those over from one to the other. Then we have the custom apps, what I'll call custom apps area, which is the Salesforce has the Lightning apps, and then within Microsoft, it's really a lot of different types of apps, like you have custom lists within SharePoint, you have Power Apps, you have Flow, and sort of like those, for building out those line of business apps, you have those available too as well. Thoughts on those two pieces?
Well, if I jump first to the custom apps, I found that kind of a entry level jumping into it. I've been able to get into some of the Lightning stuff and some of the workflow associated with Lightning, pretty easily. I don't understand the depth there. I think there's a lot of power in there kind of very quickly. They've been honing that over the years. The whole SharePoint, custom list, Power Apps Flow. What I like about what Microsoft has done there is Power Apps and Flow are not coupled at the hip. Let's say with SharePoint, they can kind of exist on their own, and also very friendly to different data sources and a wider ecosystem of inputs and outputs. When you look at things like Flow, where it's gives you a little bit more of a if then this type feel, and then if you want to get deeper and deeper, there's extensibility there. So I think they're running fairly neck and neck there. Depends on what you're trying to do, which one would be more appropriate. And then from a migration from one to the other, I don't think you're going to see a lot of that where people are migrating from a Lightning app to custom lists and Power Apps and Flow. Although if they've sunset Salesforce and they don't see that in the ecosystem, you would have to address that to say, what do I do with these kind of low code, no code solutions? That's getting the attention of some of our customers looking at low code, no code, where they're investing in Power Apps and Flow and some kind of third party solutions that would allow them to do a business problem in a week or in 1 or 2 weeks, which is pretty interesting, where they're creating the ability to enable the business and do that quickly. So I think there is some momentum towards these low-code, no-code solutions. And then Heroku versus Azure or Azure, I would say that's interesting. I don't know how many people are comparing the two. I think they might be using Heroku because, again, they're on the platform for Salesforce and want to simplify things and, go to one conference that they learn about all of it, just like, people go to a Microsoft conference to learn all about the platforms. Yeah. I would say Azure is head and shoulders above Heroku. I don't, and some of it has to do with I don't see a lot of momentum and press around that. That doesn't seem to be something that they're putting as much energy in as maybe 3 years ago, where I saw a lot of hiring into kind of the account team and product team around Heroku. It's been pretty low key from my exposure to it. And it seems like Azure is just kicking butt in terms of what it's doing and how broad it's become as a set of services.
So save the biggest for the last, which is Salesforce CRM to Dynamics CRM. I think, as we look at this, there's obviously, this is a big move if you were looking to move from one to the other. Large efforts, because typically your CRM, you've got not just the data stored within it, not just for supporting your internal processes around CRM, but you also typically have integrations with other products. You have lots of apps that are built on top, just things that you've built out to make it your own. And there's whole companies focused in on if you decide to, which it's not to be taken lightly, to move from one to the other, is a pretty significant effort. But then you might be looking at it for alignment to Microsoft reasons, or for some of you're just everybody talks about the Apple tax. There's a Salesforce tax, I think, as well. You're just looking at alternatives that are out there. I think that's something that some folks
it's an order of magnitude more. I think
it's a big
it's a big jump.
Yeah, especially when you're looking at any of the add-ons and things like that. But I think there's an obvious that could be a whole discussion upon itself, is talking about moving from Salesforce CRM over to Dynamics, and there might be a whole area. Part of the reason why we're having some of these discussions is just trying to find out from the community sort of like what areas are people looking at and want to go after. I think if there is interest from people, and we hear people that they're interested in delving into more of this, we can, with our background, understanding primarily Salesforce as our understanding Salesforce CRM. I think our expertise, we haven't done a lot with Dynamics, but just interested to see where this goes and whether there's a lot of opportunity.
We always toy around with that. I think there are some companies that hone in on that.
Yeah.
And there is a broad set of things to consider. Yeah. The integrations and the customizations that go on within CRM. I think we know it from a working model of using the tool and knowing some of the ecosystem of building apps in the Salesforce App Exchange. That one, it's one we keep our eye on.
Yep.
And probably what interests us the most is Dynamics is getting pulled together with Power Apps and Flow and being the Power Platform. And that is, for building business apps, it's that dynamic CRM. So, some of the things that you see in Salesforce Lightning and CRM together is similar to, the Power Platform, where Power Apps, Flow, and Dynamics are coming together for, low-code solutions that are addressing business applications.
Yep. It'd be interesting to see how that plays, whether we end up getting into that over time or not.
Yeah, because with the SharePoint stuff, there's more things that are going away from building solutions in SharePoint to SharePoint being a service, and where it's kind of moving over to Power Apps, Flow, and Dynamics, which is where more of the business apps are being built.
Awesome. So part of this, hopefully this conversation, some takeaways from it, there is quite a bit of overlap. There are some areas where people might be looking at making the move and sort of coming up with an appropriate strategy of making a move from one to the other. In this conversation, Tommy and I are just sort of talking about these things at a high level. We'd love to continue this conversation. If you're looking at doing something like this and want to talk maybe about a certain area where you're trying to move off of Salesforce Lightning apps and over to Microsoft with Power Apps and Flow, or I'll use that as an example, and want to continue on those conversations. 3will.com, go to the Contact Us page, just let us know you want to have some of those conversations, and we'd love to follow up on it. We're just trying to stay on top of what's needed in the marketplace. I think we, with our expertise in building, more and more different types of platform type migrations to Microsoft, we're just trying to stay on top of what people are trying to do. And so if you're looking at one of these options, would love to hear from you. Would love to get your thoughts on what you're trying to do. And some of these things are multi-year efforts, and some of these are coming up with an appropriate strategy to get them done. And we'd love to be a part of that conversation, at least initially, with you about doing this. Anything else, sort of things that through this conversation, you're sort of walking away with, Tommy?
No, I think we covered quite a bit.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, this is where we see probably the most overlap. Maybe not the most migrations.
Yeah.
Part of it is because they're both very strong players.
Yeah.
And so I think there's, in a sense, loyalty to some of these platforms where people, it's fairly sticky.
Mm-hmm.
They get in these platforms, they're pretty happy with the innovation and how things are moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Two very great companies.
Yeah, I think that's for us. I mean, even with us, we're using both Salesforce CRM and all of as many of the Microsoft suite. So it's even worked out for us. But it'll, I think, as a part of this as well, is just having the option of, if you need to move off of one and onto the other, is help from an outside partner to do that, and coming up with the right strategy for it. But a lot of these, they are both great companies. They're both partners of 3will, and so it's sort of interesting just sort of getting into this and seeing what people, sort of a lot of this is looking into the future and trying to understand what people will want. Great. We appreciate everybody taking the time to do this. Thank you so much, Tommy, for your time.
You're welcome.
Thanks, everybody, for listening, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Work Together Better podcast. We're available on SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you're looking for a partner to help you craft a modern digital workplace on the Microsoft Cloud, please come by and see us at 3will.com. That's the number 3 spelled out, WILL.com. Thank you, and have a great day.